Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering, live from Accelerate 2018. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we have special guests fresh off of their main stage presentation.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of adrenaline at this point, I'm thinking, and not from you or I, but...
Not from us, and they're not excited to be here.
Well...
That's mean.
We'll see.
We have both Denise Schindler and Paul Sohi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So you guys did a great job this morning at the main stage presentation. Before we get started with digging into what you do and everything you talked about earlier, we have a couple of, I guess, fun icebreaker questions to try and make us friends. What do you think?
I think we use it to determine if we would be friends. Like right now, we kind of have to pretend, but it's like, would we really be friends is what these handful of questions decide. So think about your answers.
You can both give answers. Who's your favorite designer, engineer, or kind of science guy out there in the world?
Living, dead, doesn't make a difference.
Paul Sohi.
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, I already don't like you, Denise.
Yep, -1.
That's fair, guys. Man, that's a hard one. I'm going to say Nikola Tesla.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That was
Croatian sensation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
How many people say that? Like everyone? Or
It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
He's kind of like just far enough off the map that people are like, oh yeah, it's cool to say that one, right?
And you don't want to change your answer from Paul?
I would.
No, it's
Okay,
Paul.
okay, we'll leave
No
it as Paul.
question, doubt about that.
Okay.
If you weren't doing your job that you're currently doing, money wasn't an issue, what would that job be? And don't say like, I love my job, so it's what I would do.
Yeah, you're not allowed
Though
to
maybe
do that.
you actually would say that.
Yeah, my answer would be being a cyclist. So that's my passion. That's what I love. So
Okay,
Fair enough.
We'll give you a pass, Paul.
Yeah.
You have to give a different answer than I love my job.
Right. We know better.
So I do love my job. But dream job, if money was no object, I would love to design buildings for video games. Just like crazy, like don't have to worry about physics, doesn't have to work, just looks epic.
You're just like Minecrafting stuff all over the place.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Maybe a little more detail. All right. In your mind, is Pluto a planet?
Yes.
yes.
Yes? All right.
Okay, well, that's a nod to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Did you know, fun fact, he's the reason why Pluto is not a planet anymore?
Neil, we be beefing now.
Okay.
We be beefing.
Exactly. Okay, next one up. Most influential civilization or technology?
You want to go first?
Car.
That's a good one.
Car? The car is really? All right.
How
Wow.
would you have
He's
gotten-
very critical.
How
Has
would
he
you have
been
gotten
critical
here,
this
by
whole
the way?
time?
It's just because
Normally it's my job, what he's doing now.
cheeky. I'm gonna go with Roman Empire.
Okay,
Okay.
that's a good one.
Last one. You want to take it, Luke?
Last one. So you have to rank these in order, and if we missed one. Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Doctor Who, Star Wars. 1, 2, 3, 4. What did we miss? Just say them in the order you like them.
I'm out. I'm not watching movies.
My guess is you don't- you
anything.
didn't like
I
Harry
just
Potter.
know Harry
Too busy
Potter
cycling.
and Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones just from advertising.
I've actually never watched Game of Thrones, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Star Wars,
Okay.
original trilogy only. What were the other ones?
Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and Doctor Who.
Oh, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, and then Game of Thrones because I've not
Okay.
watched it.
Okay, that works.
Fair enough.
I'm assuming we would still be friends with both of them.
We'll say yes.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how the rest of this goes. All right, so moving on to a little bit of why we're actually here. How about that? We see that you have a Wikipedia page, all of your own. So congratulations. You kind of made it in life. I think that's kind of what determines if you're somebody.
Do you have a Wikipedia page, Paul?
I might make one now.
You make your own. Make your
my
own
own one.
Update it
I
yourself.
would be interested in who did it because, well, I didn't did it.
You're not involved in
Did
that
you
at
know
all?
you had one before we told you?
I know,
Come on,
yeah.
you've
Okay.
Googled
But it's
yourself.
really, it's crazy if you go on Wikipedia one time and you see yourself there. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So how many races have you been in over the years, and how many do you think you've placed in?
That's a hard question. Well, I guess I've been racing now. I'm racing for 7 years. Well, I guess I did like 100 races or something
Okay.
like more. and I've been placing most of the times pretty good. So I have like the medals are not like placed pretty obviously in my apartment. So there, if you open the cupboard, and there are a lot of medals in. So I can tell you, it's a lot.
A lot. So you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And like, so 2018's coming to an end, or you're on the off season, right?
Yeah.
So how did 2018 go for you?
2018 was just incredible, awesome.
A great year?
Yeah, it started with the World Championships in the beginning in Brazil and Rio de Janeiro on the track. Been able to become world champion again, which was really fulfilling my dreams because I missed it at Rio Paralympic Games. So getting back what I missed there was really, for me, a huge accomplishment. And the whole season was just incredible, being 4 times vice world champion. And then ending in Canada with the last World Cup race with a gold medal. So I can't complain.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. So when you say the track, this is the short track that you're speaking of. So this is the sprints, correct?
But I'm focusing more on the long distance and
Okay.
in the velodrome. So my favorite discipline is the pursuit, which
Okay.
is 3K.
Okay, and that's where there's a lot of strategy, correct, with making sure it's not just riding as fast as you can, obviously.
It's strategy, yeah, and you shouldn't miss it.
Yeah, I've seen it before, but I don't know if I've had the patience to watch the whole thing. So, but now I will.
Yeah, it's like dying in 12 laps. So you can
It's
decide
like
die in the
NASCAR,
first
but-
4
it's
and
really
the
not
last
that
8.
long.
So it's tough. It's a hard race.
That's awesome. So how many miles or kilometers,
Yeah.
is that a thing,
Yeah.
do you usually ride a day?
Well, a day is hard to say. It always depends on what I have on my training plan. But I can say approximately in the year I do around 12 to 15,000 kilometers.
I don't know if I drive that far in a car.
I know. That's so many. That's so many. Paul, how many do you do in a year?
Miles on a bicycle?
Or kilometers, whatever
Or
makes you
kilo-
feel better.
Thank you. Base 10, guys. Get into it.
Yeah,
It's
my
pretty
bad.
Solid. On a
Imperial.
bicycle, 0, because last year I bought and had 4 bikes stolen. I'm not kidding.
In
But
Boston or in London?
In London.
But maybe it was 5K then. So in
So,
total,
yeah,
4
maybe it was
bikes, all got
5K
stolen, 1
from the
kilometers
store.
until it got stolen. 5K?
5K is
That works
impressive.
in the year.
Basically,
That's
yeah.
pretty good.
Likely 5K more than I did, so that's still something. I'm
So
impressed.
you said you have only been racing for 7 years. So were you an athlete prior to that, or was it really just the cycling that got you into athletics?
It was cycling really, but I came to sport very, very late.
Okay.
When I was a kid, like I wasn't really in touch with sport, and it was not a positive thing I experienced, because when you are amputated and you have a normal leg, it's not really working that you exercise and you participate in a regular sports class without pain or really having fun in that. You know,
Okay.
you're always the last. So the turning point was when I started working out in a gym and I started to participate in spinning classes.
Okay.
So because these bikes were fixed, you know, on the ground, so nobody could like pass me and be faster than me. So I was able to gain some kind of fitness first, and then I started cycling outside. So it's I think a very funny story of a professional athlete.
Started with spin. James did a spin class once.
Yeah.
I did a spin class.
And only one.
Maybe your career is still open.
I think
to
I
come.
have a chance. 36 is probably the age that people really start
Yeah.
getting into their groove.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
in your peak years, man.
Yeah.
There are senior world championships as well. It's never too late.
She just called you a senior. Oh my goodness.
Wow. So certainly not going to be friends, but okay.
Okay.
I see how this is
I'm-
going.
I missed it now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh.
So you just came off main stage and you gave us a description of like the old way that the prosthetics were made. Could you just give us a short kind of recap of how that goes for the folks listening online?
Yeah, you have to know, like, in the old way of how prostheses are manufactured, you start basically, the orthopedic technician starts with a plaster cast. He's taking off my limb. And with the plaster cast, he is able to proceed and to produce a prosthesis. That means, like, he's making a testing socket. I get the testing socket and I give him feedback regularly, which takes like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then he's making adjustments all the time with basically a professional hairdryer. So
Okay.
in the testing socket with the heat, he's able to adjust the pressure points. And then after 1 month, I'm able give him a feedback. Okay, it's fine, it's done, everything is fine for the socket, and he's making the final one out of carbon.
Okay.
So this is the process, very shortly said, that we have now.
Now, from the socket to the carbon fiber, what's that process look like from the mold they're making? Is that a quick process, an easy process? Is that something that you're involved in, or is that just the prosthetics? Like, is there ever any fit and finish issues with the carbon fiber model when that happens?
The fitting is with the testing socket. So when he does the carbon fiber one and the last version, I'm out. So he does have the testing socket which fits, and he takes the negative and makes the carbon one. But I'm completely involved in the whole plaster cast because I have to be there locally. I'm involved in giving feedback all the time, being there locally to adjust it all the time. So it's a long process.
Yeah. Okay. And how many times would you say you've had to go through that fitting process?
It depends a bit, but 2-3 times.
Okay. Because I would imagine that once you get a good fit, it probably stays for a while. Or
You think?
Oh,
I would think that's different. I think it
Well,
would change a lot.
Yeah.
If it has to be that precise so that you're not getting pain and pressure.
Yeah, I agree. So if you have the socket and you're in for 1 hour, most of the time it fits. But if you have a whole day and all the changes, like it's warm outside, you sweat more, the volume decreases of your limb. So you have all the changes, so you really have to test it properly.
Okay.
That you really 100% that it's fine for every day.
Gotcha.
I saw that you were stuck working with Mickey Wakefield and, of course, Paul over here.
So sorry.
So we gave you a tough group. So that I don't really have a question. I just kind of wanted to apologize. But how large?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. How large of an Autodesk team do you think was working on this? Like, how many people did you encounter?
Well, I don't know all in person, honestly, because the guys took a lot of work away from me that I was able to train a lot. But yeah, I think we've been involving a lot of experts. So the Autodesk team, just in Munich, was 2-3 people. Then we had San Francisco with the printing. Mm-hmm. We had Paul, at that time based in London, now somewhere else. So...
Not that
I guess like you could say better. How much people were involved in that whole project?
So from Autodesk side, we had I think it was 7 in total. So a lot of people from Pier 9, Mickey, some people in France and in London helping out, and then we had like additional support staff like outside of the Autodesk fold. Is it fold?
Sure, we'll go with that.
We'll fold, yeah.
Okay.
All in all, like people who helped make this thing happen, it was 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Takes a village.
Takes a village, right? So how, you seem to know a lot about the process. How involved with the design and this whole workflow were you?
Completely, because I'm the athlete, you know, I have to compete with it. And basically I said what kind of requirements I have, what I want, what should be better. And basically I challenged you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's like working for a disappointed boss, just like
constantly.
Every
day.
time you had this
Did
great
you call
idea,
me a
you just
disappointed
said,
boss?
Yeah.
"It needs to
Come
be
on.
better."
You'd call him up and be like, this is actually worse than the last time.
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the classic withholding father in a movie. It's just like,
Yeah, but I was involved really the complete process, and that was very important because otherwise we wouldn't have had that product in the end that would perform.
Okay, so I'm thinking if I was a high level, I mean, I will be soon in the senior division, but if I was a high performing athlete, I would be really focused on training and maybe not want to spend a lot of time on this and be like, hey, you guys are the experts, go do it and get me what I need. Would that be an option, you think? I guess both of you. Do you think that's an option in the future where it will be a little less hands-on for the athlete?
So could you easily go from the scan to a final product in a much quicker time frame, or does all of those intermediate steps need to happen?
I think in the meanwhile we could do it faster with less time on me, but at that time, we had to understand the whole process and the requirements I have as a cyclist, I have as an amputated person with a fitting. So that needs a lot of understanding. It's a pilot project, so it took the time. I think meanwhile we are much faster on that. And you have to know, I was just saying what I want. They have to do what I want. So I didn't do that and didn't find solutions. They had to find it. So I was just saying, look, I want this. This is not working. This is not right. This is not. And I want that. So I was just basically being, how did you call me?
Bossy.
Bossy.
I think it was a disappointed. Yeah.
Disappointed boss. Thank you. Yeah, I was a disappointed boss. Yeah.
Well, the reason it took us so long the first time was I'm not a biomechanical engineer or expert, and I had to learn all of that on the go. And I don't speak German, and Denise's prosthetists don't speak English.
A tiny bit.
That sounds like it could be a problem, yeah.
Well, she had to try and translate all these technical words and technical language into something I could understand. So
I learned a lot.
Yeah. What was the word for tapping a screw in German again? It was this super long word, to make a thread on something.
I'm not sure.
I'll find it later.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know when I'm talking like a tap and die?
Yeah.
We say tap, it's one syllable. It's like 8 in German. I don't know why.
I'm questioning your knowledge of the German language now. I don't know.
Thank you. I don't know the German language. I'm a disappointed boss. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an amazing morning.
So
I'm old and in a senior division. It's fine.
So a part of that
Can I have an autograph?
A part of that design process was you mentioned some aero requirements. How did you guys handle some of that testing, and was it more a rule of thumb, like you knew it had to be a thin, you knew it had to be kind of a foil shape? Like what went behind some of the aero shape of the prosthetic?
Well, we had the first prints, and for sure it was not perfect right from the beginning. So we had a lot of errors, and the first print that came looked more like a vase you can put flowers in and water, but not like a socket that I could use.
Okay.
So
see where the disappointed boss bit comes from.
I'm just honest. But it takes that errors to make it better.
Okay.
And we had like already the second print was one I could use.
Okay.
So imagine that. That's crazy for a total new process. So all in all, although I challenged him and said like this is not working and I want that different, he was good in doing that because no one else would have been able to.
That's a pretty good compliment for a disappointed boss. Come on.
She has her moments. Yeah.
She has her moments. Okay, that's nice. Man, you guys must have spent a lot of time together.
Actually,
or at least on the phone together or
on the
something.
phone and like texting, but I think in person maybe only like
before games 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah, 4 times. That was it.
Yeah. It's not a lot.
It wasn't a ton. It was
I
mostly
didn't want
the
too much,
text.
so
Yeah.
you
wanted to keep your distance.
Yeah,
We saw the way I drove and I
That's
was
smart.
I just told him that I've been racing all the time. I didn't, but one time.
Oh yeah. She would tell me she was racing, and then on Instagram she's just having some coffee
At
with
the
a friend,
beach,
Laying on the sun.
hanging out.
Munich,
But you
while
do
I'm
as a
in
professional
Munich.
athlete all the time. You have to get ton that looks like you're in shape.
That's what I've been doing wrong.
Yeah,
It explains so much.
You got to go to the tanning salon now.
Right, exactly.
I can train you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have to set up something after this so I can get all the tips for my new career.
Yeah.
So I saw you met with my close personal friend Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How was his coffee this morning? I didn't met him.
well, I texted him. He hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Okay,
But
okay.
on a scale of like 1 to 10, so we know he's like a sports guy,
Mm-hmm.
but how much do you think he understood the technology and design side of things? Because I know, like, I've had a number of startup friends that have gone to DC
Mm-hmm.
and met with him, and it seems that he's interested in it, but I'm curious about how well it seemed like he understood.
On the one hand, I was in a very lucky position. It was the right time and the right president. So it was not 1 year later.
Right.
So I was very happy about that point. But really honestly, you get all the briefing before and it looked like, okay, we're going to have a Q&A and it's going to be very scripted. But when we've been talking, when he came to us, when I was presenting him the prosthetic, it was totally different. He really knew about the process. He really understand the benefit, and it was a conversation. It was not he was questioning me anything and I gave an answer, and he was questioning the next thing and I gave an answer. It was a conversation, and he realized the benefits, and that was impressing to me because he's really into the topic. He was really well informed, and he did understand the wider perspective and the benefits of the process. So it was not just kind of breathing I get, just doing Q&A. So he did understand what the process and the whole thing means for the future of making prostheses.
That's impressive to me because in theory, I'm supposed to understand this process, and I'm still kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be running the country, and you feel like he knew what was going on. That makes me feel bad.
That is amazing. Yeah.
It is
and
amazing.
this is really his, he's present. When he arrives, he's just present in a very positive way, and he's really interested into that.
That's great.
So, question for both of you. So you've been racing for, you said, 7 years. How do you think this technology has affected your performance with your races? And then Paul, I wanted to ask you the same question, just the technology in general for just prosthetics and athletics and that sort of stuff. So would you have won without the technology?
Well,
Paul,
it's always two sides.
You just missed Paul.
Paul clearly
claiming
says
it.
no. It was all me. She's lazy and does
She
nothing.
still owes me a bronze medal.
Yeah.
Did she let you touch the bronze medal at least?
Take your picture with
I got
it?
to take a picture.
He was hanging
wearing
around
it.
his neck
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Well, it's also too heavy. I didn't want it after that. I was like, nah, I don't think I could wear this every day.
No, for sure. Like when we did the final prosthesis, I did test it. It's nice to get a fancy leg, and then they say it's super performing, but I want to double check everything. So as a professional athlete, you have to test if it's really good. So what I did, we did performance tests on the track and in the velodrome, and it was faster. So for sure, if you don't have a trained athlete and you just have that perfect fitting prosthesis, but he's not trained, you won't perform either. But the combination of a well-trained athlete that's perfectly prepared for the games and a perfect prosthesis makes the point. And I saved in the testings like almost 2 seconds at 3 kilometers.
Seems like a lot when it comes to like hundredth of a second in cycling.
It is. Well, outside at a time trial and the road race, it's not 100 seconds just in a sprint. But it is a lot, and it does make a change if it's maybe the 4th place or the 3rd place or the 3rd place or the 2nd place. So it does make a change.
And then Paul, same question for you. You said you weren't a biomechanical engineer prior to this, but what you've learned so far and working with Denise, how do you think the future of this is going to change, not only just athletes, but just people in general that are going to leverage this technology moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's we've seen a paradigm shift happening. Like for that industry, like it's happening right now, and I think the more time goes on, the more that process is gonna become necessary. Like Denise's prosthetist, he's in his 60s, and Thomas, his son, is in his late 30s, early 40s, right? But if you take the UK as an example for the rest of the world, you have just over 100 registered prosthetists and orthotists and 100,000 patients. And
that seems like a pretty bad ratio.
Right? It's not great. And the number of students you have going into biomechanical design is going down as well. So the only way that you're going to be able to support the number of patients when you don't have the experts is digitizing that process and scaling up. It's also just like, yeah, for Denise, of course, like getting the prosthetic fast is important because she needs to train with it. But the same applies to regular patients too. Like if I needed a prosthetic and I have to wait 10 weeks, and if I started a diet the day after I met with the prosthetist, or I just decided I was going to eat burgers for the rest of my life, like that prosthetic's not going to fit when I get it. And that's a major problem, and it's a reoccurring problem too. So it's happening. Like there's tons of really cool companies that have started adopting this technology and this process to make prosthetics as well.
Okay.
You mentioned on stage shoes are kind of a problem, and I keep checking yours out here. How many pairs of shoes do you have?
I feel like it's going to be a
I
lot.
might have you beat, Denise.
Paul could be me. I think like 30, 40 pairs.
Seems like
Is
a
that
lot.
still okay?
No, I mean that's
But most of them are
fine.
really like training shoes.
most like
Yeah, half.
3 pairs or
No,
like half?
no, half of it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Luke, do you have any other technical questions? I only have one other that I wanted to follow up with.
No, I'm good.
You're good? All right. So the last one, and Hooper kind of stole my thunder on this one on main stage, but that's fine. I won't hold it against him. How could people, and I'm going to be fired after this, so that's cool. How could people work with you or even with us, like with the Autodesk Foundation, to help children in need of prosthetics or really anyone like you were talking about? Thoughts?
I'm taking this one?
email
okay.
Paul.
This one and I'm completing.
paul.sohi@autodesk.com to get involved.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
No one's
to
listening.
me?
It's fine.
Okay, great. All right. So, yeah, the Autodesk Foundation has supported a number of companies doing this, and I don't want to say that we're responsible, but definitely in the last 3 years, we've seen like a lot of companies startups in particular, adopt this technology and this process. So I've been training anyone who's interested in listening to me or asks for it to do this digital process. And I think once we get to a decent enough groundswell and demand, we'll make like a full documentation and just share it out with the industry and just go, hey, we think we figured out a way to do this. You want to try it out and see how it works?
I actually do have one more question.
Of course you do.
Do you think that it will get to the point where you can go directly from a 3D print to something wearable?
Yeah, we did that
No,
already.
I was going to say, isn't that what just happened?
So no post process, no smoothing, no carbon overlay. Is there anything on the horizon material wise where you could go from it comes out of the printer and it goes on?
I think for prosthetics, no. But for other industries, yeah. There's this really cool 3D printing company out there called XJet. And I don't fully understand. I'm not going to pretend to understand how their printing technology works. As far as I'm concerned, it's magic. But they have a way of actually just like atomically bonding the metal in the printing process. So there's no lasers used and none of that. And the parts that come out, they look like they've been machined. It's just insane. Again, as far as I'm concerned, it's magic. But yeah, maybe for plastics one day. I can see that happening.
Okay.
We got a maybe. We got a flat out no over here from the disappointed boss. So that's cool. All right. Well, I think we kind of ran over already, so I think we should wrap this up. But Denise, Paul, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully this was one of the less painful interviews you've had to do with us. And I will follow up with you on some of the training tips that I need.
Yeah, and I did an autograph in advance.
Absolutely.
Just to secure.
Before he was famous.
Yeah. Can sell it on eBay.
Absolutely.
Preparing your Wikipedia page.
We're all going to have one soon. All right. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of Accelerate 2018.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys.